Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye. This verse is very instructive because it's talking about how we're serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The main principle in Bhakti is to serve the superior, and by that one becomes elevated, especially because we have identified the superior as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Shastra then says, by serving the Supreme, one can actually attain the same qualities, revive one's original qualities. And Tato Jaya Mudirayat, by offering our respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His representatives who are presenting the message of the Absolute Truth, then we can conquer over this seemingly unconquerable material world, Durga. It's a very difficult situation. It's hard to get out of once you're caught up in the legal system here. It's almost impossible to get out unless you have some very weighty help, somebody who comes from the outside and gives a pardon. And so we pray with that type of mood when we say Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. We're calling upon all our superiors to allow us to enter into this very seriously, and knowing that by doing so we are attaining the highest goal of life. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Kadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Go Premanande Hari Bol. Did anyone but me notice that Avantika is ambidextrous. She was using both hands to play she was alternating hands to play the harmonium this morning. I had no idea. Wonders never cease. In Krishna consciousness, there's no plateau. When one gives one's attention to Krishna and endeavors, there's a fear always in the material world there'll be a plateau, and then it'll become boring again, and I'll fall from my position. But the Shastra keeps telling us over and over again, there's no plateau in Krishna consciousness. It's not a point that you come to. You're finished. There may be a point in our practice where we become distracted and again take up, our attention becomes absorbed, again, abhinibheshita in material concepts, and then we feel like we've plateaued, but that's not Krishna consciousness. So one can continue eternally in the process of Krishna consciousness, developing one's devotional talents and increasing one's love for Krishna. Today, may I have a look at a nectar of instruction? Actually, yeah, just to have the book over here will be nice. What a rare and important book this is, written by the hand of Srila Rupa Goswami, who is our main acharya. He's direct representative of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in this concise guidebook to the process of bhakti, one can find all the necessary instructions to advance to the highest degree. And one important point I would like to focus on today is found in the verse, Dadati pratigranati kuyamakyati prichyati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidam pritilakshanam. That Rupa Goswami lists 6 items that are considered loving exchanges between one devotee and another. And he says that those are giving gifts and receiving gifts. Giving and receiving, right? It's all about giving and receiving. Then giving prasad and accepting prasadam. And revealing one's mind in confidence and listening to another reveal his or her mind in confidence. So he says these are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. And in Prabhupada's purport to this verse, something very important. Of course, all his purports are important. But he writes that, in this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami explains how to perform devotional activities in the association of other devotees. There are 6 kinds of activities, namely giving charity to the devotees, 2, accepting from the devotees whatever they may offer in return, 3, opening one's mind to the devotees, 4, inquiring from them about the confidential service of the Lord, 5, honoring prasad, or spiritual food given by the devotees, and 6, feeding the devotees with prasad. An experienced devotee explains, and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. This is kuyamakyati prichyati. When a devotee distributes prasad, remnants of food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this prasad as the Lord's grace received through the pure devotees. We should also invite pure devotees to our home, offer them prasad, and be prepared to please them in all respects. This is called bhunkte bhojayate chaiva. Even in ordinary social activities, these 6 types of dealings between 2 loving friends are absolutely necessary. For instance, when one businessman wishes to contact another businessman, he arranges a feast in a hotel, and over the feast, he openly expresses what he wishes to do. He then inquires from his business friend how he should act, and sometimes presents are exchanged. Thus, whenever there is a dealing of priti, or love, in intimate dealings, these 6 activities are executed. In the previous verse, Srila Rupa Goswami advised that one should renounce worldly association and keep company with the devotees, Sangha Tyagat Satovrate. The International Society for for Krishna consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. Did you catch that last sentence? What did it say? Yeah, that's pretty amazing. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. It's an important point to remember. What is the essence of our mission and what makes it go properly? And why has this society been established? It takes a lot of work to establish a society. You have to conceive of the structure of it, the purpose of it, and so forth. You have to have some facility, some land, some buildings and things like that. And what is it that goes on within that's important? I was just at Google the other day, and there's a grand structure to the whole institution. And once I went in where I was going to give a talk, I was looking around a little bit, and I just noticed everyone's fully concentrated on doing their work, and mostly in front of a computer screen, doing one little part of the puzzle to develop. What are they developing? I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, they're working on cars, they're working on developing infrastructure on the internet that allow people to get more information and things like that. And the entire purpose of the organization definitely isn't to facilitate 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. Normally corporations have some other things in mind. There's a profit motive and so forth. But you can breathe freely here because the entire purpose of this organization is to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges. And the more that one remembers that and concentrates on that, the more that leaders concentrate on that and make facility for that, the movement will flourish and is flourishing. The society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with the give and take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. I'll read that again because this is the sentence I really wanted to point out. The society was started single-handedly. How was it started? Single-handedly. Do you all want to start a society single-handedly? You could if you employ this principle. But because people are coming forward and dealing with the give and take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. So Prabhupada goes on to tell more about that, but he says that this is, it was started single-handedly. And what did he concentrate on? The give and take policy, giving and taking. So there's, as he points out, the same principle prevalent in places all over the world. That's what people do when they come together. They give and take. They give some kind of service and they take something in return. So the perfection of that is seen when there's no profit motive, at least no material profit. The idea is we're giving out of gratitude. We're giving out of a sense of fullness, that we've been given something so great that we must distribute it. There's an overflow that comes, that we have that's so nice. After all, when you have something wonderful happen to you in your life, it's just something inexplicably wonderful, something comes to you without your asking for it, what do? What's the first thing? You go in a closet and close the door and you vow not to tell anybody, right? Right? No. You get on the phone. You start telling people, guess what just happened? Guess what I just got? Just what we just got. This has just happened. It just happened just now. Really? That happened to you? Everyone wants to let it out. So there's a natural way that people want to share the things that happen to them, the wonderful benefits that they get in life. They want to share it with other people. So there's that giving, and there's this taking also. That's not always so easy. Some people don't know how to take. Like some people can't take a compliment. You say very good, and they either close down or they become offended. Sometimes people can't accept gifts. Some people can't hear philosophy from others because they're so full of their own idea of the way things should be. Or even if they hear a good idea coming from somebody else, they're thinking, why didn't that idea come from me? I'm not going to listen to them because I should have thought of that. And therefore, let's just scuttle the whole thing because it's not my idea, so I don't want to hear it anyway, unless I thought of it. And that closes down the taking process. So in essence, Krishna consciousness is a purification of this give and take policy that Prabhupada mentions. This is the perfection of life, or I should say the perfection of life is achieved by purifying the giving and taking policy. And just as in the world there are sports and then there are extreme sports. Did you know that? There's sports and there's extreme sports. Are you aware of these things? Let me make you aware of them. There are certain kinds of sports in the world that are considered ordinary sports, conventional sports, and then there are extreme sports. They're called extreme sports, where people do things that are practically life-threatening and unimaginable in order to compete against one another. They're called extreme sports. And so there's extremes in everything. And in Krishna consciousness, the normal giving and taking becomes extreme giving and taking. We see these examples throughout the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. The giving and taking become augmented by the fact that it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's giving and taking. And we see throughout the Bhagavatam examples of this. So, considering that these are important principles, and that is that Prabhupada said our movement is based on the give and take policy, the give and take policy. I thought first about the taking, give and take. So what is that taking aspect? And what is the extreme taking policy? Oftentimes it comes, the devotees come, the Lord comes, and their intention is to take something. Because by taking, as Krishna says, Yasyaham anagunami harishe taddanam shana. Krishna's name is Hari, which means that he takes away all your suffering. And in the meantime, you may think he's taking away all my livelihood or my happiness as I know it. But actually his intention as Hari is to take away all of the burdens that I'm carrying in my life. And those who are representatives of Hari have the same mission in life, that's to take away the suffering of other living entities on behalf of the Lord, to assist them that way. So I noticed, and all of you have noticed, I'm sure, that when Prabhupada was arriving in America, he gave himself a certain title. Do you remember what that title is? No, that was later that he called himself founder of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. But I'll give you a clue. When he was writing his prayers and poetry on the Jaladuta before he arrived in America, what? Bhaktivedanta, but he named himself, exactly. Dayanidhi Prabhu said it, an insignificant beggar. This is how he signed his letter. So he's coming to America, but he identifies himself as a beggar. What does a beggar do? It takes. Extreme beggars take everything. Regular beggars, they take a little something here and there. They'll take whatever. But extreme beggars, they want the whole thing. They want more than just a token. They want your soul. Krishna wants your soul. In fact, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvang sarva papebhyo mokshayishami masucha. Just abandon everything. Walk into a building somewhere and tell them, okay, just abandon everything and walk out right now. Give it all up. It's a little abrupt for people. So just analyze these words that Prabhupada uses for the title. He gives himself an insignificant beggar. Now, first of all, he's not insignificant. Although he calls himself an insignificant beggar, it's not insignificant because what he's begging from people is highly significant. He's asking people to do a little service. and then gradually a lot of service, and then gradually give your whole soul. I looked up the word significant. And, well, insignificant. The word insignificant means too small or unimportant to be worth consideration. That's what insignificant. So an insignificant beggar really is a lowly title. First of all, beggars are not, the word beggar is not regarded as a high position. It's like if you go to some mixer at a what do they call, Lions Club, or they have those Rotary Club. You go to a mixer, business mixer, get all dressed up really nicely, put on your best suit and tie or best attire, and go in there with your card, business card and everything. That's what people do. They walk around, see if they can make some connections. So what do? I'm an insignificant beggar. Or just put it on your card, such and such position, beggar. It's actually a powerful position, because when you start off like that, people will say, they'll ask you, well, what do you want? You said, I'm a beggar. If you come as a beggar, they say, what do you want? So say, I'll tell you what I want. Here's it, hand it over. So Prabhupada comes in like this as an insignificant beggar, as if there's nothing to get too excited about here. I'm just an insignificant beggar. Of course, he's saying it out of humility. But the word significant comes from signify, an indicator of, a symbol of, from the Latin word signum, a token. So a token's a thing serving as a visible or tangible representation of fact, quality, or feeling. So for instance, money is a token of something. It's a token of the hard work. In and of itself, it's worthless, especially if you live in India right now. And you can see how quickly the concept can change. It's like, people who are designating what the money means, can suddenly, get together and say, let's change the meaning behind the whole thing. Let's say it means something else. And like, okay, these over here, they don't mean anything anymore. And it was like, they don't mean anything anymore. I thought they signified something. No, they don't signify anything anymore. So tokens are like that. They're symbols, they're representatives of something else, of some other thing that you're trying to present. So oftentimes, people, they give their money and they put money in the hundi, which is not a bad idea, because we're attached to our money, and when we put the money in the hundi, then we'll be attached to the hundi, and the hundi's sitting in front of the Lord, so we'll start thinking of Krishna, especially if we put a lot in there. And but it's just a token. It's an idea. This represents something. This idea, it signifies something else. And so the insignificant beggar comes to take on behalf of Krishna. So really, it's not insignificant. It's it's the most significant thing that's happening really in this world when a spiritual beggar comes to your door, or approaches you somewhere, or asks you for some service, because then it starts your giving process to Krishna. To give people an opportunity to give to Krishna. These are what the representatives of Krishna do. They go as insignificant beggars. And they say, just give something for Krishna. And this is why it's important for the devotees to make this distinction that I'm an instrument. Nothing is for me. I'm not taking it on my behalf. For instance, a teacher or guru becomes immediately nullified when he or she then starts thinking, oh, this is for me. No, that you're taking on behalf of Krishna, and you have to hand it over right away. Then it has significance. That's what keeps the channel open, is this giving process, accepting, and then passing it on to Krishna. The point is that it goes to Krishna. Then it becomes significant, because it revives our loving relationship with Krishna to give to him, to give something. And in the material world, we have to start somewhere, some kind of giving. And interestingly, that giving makes us grow. Have you ever had this experience? You're thinking over in your mind, should I do it? Should I Should I give this amount or a lesser amount or whatever? And the moment that you let it go, you make the decision and it actually goes out of your hand. You make the phone call, you push the button, whatever it is, and it's out the door. Whatever you thought was yours, you give it away. Then how do you feel suddenly? You feel relaxed? Any other emotions? What? Feel more responsible? Connected? You're all givers, so. Do you feel like you lost anything? Sometimes? Give till it hurts? Yeah, there's a lot that happens there, yes? You lost some anartas? Yeah, like you gave up an anarta? Well, it's definitely something you think about. It doesn't go unnoticed because I am my possessions. And when I start to give them away to Krishna, I start to allocate my time, my possessions and everything to Krishna, there's definitely an intense consideration. There's a process that takes place. Whether it hurts when it happens, then, or whether I feel exhilarated, whatever, it's definitely moving in a certain direction. So, I want to look at just Prabhupada's demeanor in taking. And just to point out that one who's fully engaged in devotional service is mentioned in the Shastra, Devarshi Bhutapna Nrinam Pitranam Naking Koronayam Nranicharajan Sarvatmaraya Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Pariyahrita Kartam. That person's no longer a debtor. People have to work hard in the material world because they owe a debt. Why? Because they have a vested interest in the material world. This is mine. This is my stuff, so you have to pay rent. You have to pay rent and interest for all, and you have to pay for all the stuff that you took before. And that's what karma means, and it keeps me working really hard in the material world. But someone who's come to this point and say, okay, I'll just divest all of my interests and give them to Krishna instead, then there's a great feeling of relief because that person now is absolved of all debt. As Krishna says in the Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, just give it all to me and then you won't have a debt anymore. I'll take care of it. It's a good divestment policy. There's investment advice and there's divestment advice. So Krishna gives this advice of how to divest one's assets and give them to him. So though the devotees who are working on Krishna's behalf naturally take from others because they have a mission to fulfill on behalf of the Lord. And they need resources to help expand the Krishna consciousness movement. And as they move about the world, those they take from get a great benefit. And I recalled a couple of the ways, the incidents in which Prabhupada just would naturally take, because a devotee who's fully engaged in the mission of Krishna takes up a lot of oxygen, because he or she is working hard to spread the mission of the Lord. So there's a lot of necessity in that. And here's a little section from the Prabhupada Lilamrita that I thought was representative of how Prabhupada, when he began to move around New York City with his mind fully focused on the mission of the Lord, was giving and taking with the fledgling devotees, the young devotees who started to flock around him. And you'll see, we'll be able to identify throughout this passage ways in which Prabhupada was taking and the devotees were giving, and vice versa. Ready? In Keith, Prabhupada had a serious follower. Within a week of their meeting, Keith had moved out of the Mott Street apartment and was living with Prabhupada. He's still dressed in his ragged denim shorts and t-shirt, but he began to do all the Swami's shopping and cooking. While in India, Keith had learned some of the etiquette of reverence toward a holy man and the principles of discipleship. His friends watched him curiously as he dedicated himself to the Swami. Keith, I saw that he was cooking, so I asked him if I could help. And he was very happy at the suggestion. The first couple of times he took me shopping, and after that I mostly did it. He showed me how to make chapatis without a rolling pin by pressing out the dough with your fingers. Every day we would make chapatis, rice, dal, and curries. So Keith became the dependable cook and housekeeper in Prabhupada's apartment. Meanwhile, at the Mott Street apartment, the roommates' favorite topic for discussion was their relationship with the Swami. Everyone thought it was a serious relationship. They soon knew Swamiji was Guru. And when they heard that he would be giving daily classes at 6 a.m. up in his apartment, they were eager to attend. Keith, I used to walk along the Bowery and look for flowers for him. When there were no flowers, I would take a straw or some grass. I loved going there in the morning. Howard, I would walk very briskly over to Swamiji's, chanting Hare Krishna, feeling better than ever before. Miraculously, the Lower East Side no longer looked drab. The sidewalks and buildings seemed to sparkle, and in the early morning, before the smog set in, the sky was red and golden. Chuck, I brought a few grapes and came to the door of the Swami. This was all new. Previously, I would always walk toward McDougal Street, toward Bohemia, aesthetic New York, and now I was walking to the Lower East Side toward the business district, where there were no freaks, artists, or musicians, but simply straight buildings. And somehow, outside the carnival atmosphere, there was the richest attraction for the senses and the heart. Howard, I would sing all the way to the foyer, then ring the buzzer marked A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And the door would buzz and open, and I would walk through the hallway into the small patio and up to his small second-floor apartment, tiptoeing quietly so as not to wake up the neighbors. Chuck, I came into the hall of his building, and there were many, many names printed on plaques over the mailboxes. I immediately found the name A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami handwritten on a slip of torn paper, slipped into one of the slots. I rang the buzzer and waited. After a few moments, the door buzzed loudly, and I entered through the security lock. I walked through the small garden into the rear building and upstairs. Prabhupada held his classes for almost 2 months in the privacy of his room, the same room where he typed and talked to guests. To Keith, it was not simply a class in philosophy, but a mystical experience of sweetness. Keith, the sound of his voice, the sun coming up, we'd chant for a few minutes, softly clapping hands, and Swamiji would speak. The thing that got me the most was simply the sound of his voice, especially while he was chanting Sanskrit. It was like music to my ears to hear him speak the raw sound. So as not to disturb the neighbors, Prabhupada would say, chant softly. And he asked the boys to clap softly, so softly that their hands barely touched. Then he would chant the prayers to the spiritual master, Sangsara Davanada Lida Loka. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. With his eyes closed, he sat singing softly in the dim morning light. The few who attended, Keith, Howard, Chuck, Steve, Wally, sat entranced. Never before had the Swami been so appreciated. Chuck, the Swami was sitting there, and in the mornings he would look not shining and brilliant, but very withdrawn. He looked as if he could sit like a stone, maybe forever. His eyes were only two tiny slits of glistening light. He took out his cymbals and played lightly on the edge, 1, 2, 3, and he began to sing in a deep voice that was almost atonal in its intervals. It was a melody monotone that did not express happiness or sadness, a timeless chant that told no story. We chanted along with him as best we could, but several times Swamiji stopped and said, "Softly." After about 30 minutes of chanting, we stopped. Then he opened his eyes wider and said, "We must chant softly because sometimes the neighbors are complaining." After singing, the Swami would give one of the boys a copy of Dr. Radhakrishnan's edition of Bhagavad Gita to read aloud from. He would correct their mispronunciations and then explain each verse. Because there were only a few people present, there was always ample time for everyone to discuss the philosophy. The class would sometimes run an hour and a half and cover 3 or 4 verses. Steve. Swamiji mentioned that mangoes were the king of all fruits, and he even mentioned that they were not easily available in this country. It occurred to me that I could bring him mangoes. There was a store on First Avenue that always kept a stock of fresh mangoes in the cooler. I began a regular habit. Every day, after getting off work, I would purchase one nice mango and bring it to Swamiji. Wally. Some of the boys would say, "I'm doing this for Swamiji." So I went to him and said, "Is there something I can do for you?" So he told me I could take notes in his class. The boys were sure that their service to Swamiji was spiritual, devotional service. By serving the spiritual master, who is a representative of Krishna, you were serving Krishna directly. One morning, Prabhupada told Howard that he needed help in spreading the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Howard wanted to help, so he offered to type the Swami's manuscripts of Srimad Bhagavatam. Howard, the first words of the first verse read, "O the King," and I naturally wondered whether O was the king's name and the king stood in apposition. After some time I figured out that O King was intended instead. I didn't make the correction without his permission. "Yes," he said, "change it then." I began to point out a few changes and inform him that if he wanted, I could make corrections. So I had a master's degree in English and taught last year at Ohio State. "Oh yes," Swamiji said, "do it. Put it nicely." He was giving them the idea of devotional service. A devotee may not be perfect at first, he said, but if he is engaged in service, once that service has begun, he can be purified. Service is always there in the material world or the spiritual. But service in the material world could not bring satisfaction to the self. Only bhakti, purified service. Service rendered Krishna could do that. And the best way to serve Krishna was to serve the representative of Krishna. They picked it up quickly. It was something you could do easily. It was not difficult. Like meditation, it was activity. You did something, but you did it for Krishna. They had seen Swamiji respond to the Bowery bum who had come with a gift of toilet paper. "Just see," Swamiji had said, "he's not in order, but he thought, let me give some service." But service had to be done voluntarily, out of love, not by force. Wally, Swamiji once asked me, "Do you think you could wear the Vaishnav tilak when you're on the streets?" I said, "Well, I would feel funny doing it, but if you want me to, I will." And Swamiji said, "No, I don't ask you to do anything you don't want to do." Steve, one day when I brought my daily mango to him, he was in his room surrounded by devotees. I gave him my mango and sat down, and he said, "Very good, boy." The way he said it, as if I were just a tiny little boy, made everyone in the room laugh, and I felt foolish. Swamiji, however, then changed their mood by saying, no, this is actually love. This is Krishna consciousness. And then they didn't laugh. When Howard first volunteered to do editing, he spent the whole morning working in Swamiji's room. If there is any more typing, Howard said, let me know. I could take it back to Mott Street and type there. More? There's lots more, Swamiji said. He opened the closet and pulled out 2 large bundles of manuscripts tied in saffron cloth. There were thousands of pages, single-spaced manuscripts of Prabhupada's translations of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Howard stood before them astonished. It's a lifetime of typing, he said. And Prabhupada smiled and said, yes, oh yes, many lifetimes. So from this passage, you can feel the fresh environment and experience vicariously the wonderment of the devotees and how they are stepping lightly into the devotional path, and how Prabhupada is the extreme taker. He came as an insignificant beggar, but not insignificant at all. He's taking from them whatever token they offer, and he does it in a way in which it brings them closer to Krishna. And as Prabhupada said, this give and take, this is the process through which one comes closer to Krishna. This is the entire basis of the Krishna consciousness movement. It's give and take based on the loving principle that I want to give something to Krishna. I feel compelled. I see someone who's representing Krishna and I want to give him or her something out of love. This is how it's exchanged. And Krishna accepts that. But he doesn't just accept it. He takes that and then he takes more and more and more and more. And this is the trend of the insignificant beggar. He comes in. He's just in a little Swami. Watch out when you go through that door, because your material life will be finished. And what pastime in the Bhagavatam does that bring into your mind? Yeah, Bali Maharaj and Vamana. I'll read something from that. Because, of course, anyone who loves to watch the Bharatanatyam presentation, when the dancer is, everyone can tell when they're doing Bali Maharaj and when Vamana comes out, and it's like 3 steps. That's all I want, just 3 steps. Take more, take more. I'm an insignificant beggar. I just want 3 steps. And then next thing you know, give me everything, take it all. Because he could see the capacity of Bali Maharaj. He was testing him over and over again. But he starts off with that tiny little that token. Just give me a token, 3 steps. That's all I want. And then more and more. And this is the eternal relationship with Krishna and the living entity. Krishna is the taker, we're the giver. Of course, Krishna's, when he wants to give, as Prabhupada used to quote his father, when Krishna wants to take, he takes with 10 hands. And you can't stop it. And when he wants to give, he gives with 10 hands. And we become overwhelmed by how much he gives. And this reciprocity is what melts the heart of the devotee. The devotee feels the response of Krishna, because Krishna is responsive. He's the most responsive of everyone. In fact, in the prayers of Gajendra says that I'm making a prayer now. But he says, it's not that you weren't attentive to me before I made my prayer. It wasn't that now that I'm making a prayer, you turn your attention toward me and say, oh, what can I do for you? But he said, you're always attentive. I'm the one who's looking the other direction. I'm the one who's turned around. Bhayam dvitya binibeshita syat. Etat apetasya means that I'm turned around. So very logically, the verse goes on to say, how do you solve the problem? Turn back around again. And how do you do that? By this system of give and take. A couple places in the Bhagavatam. There's a lot in here, but 1 or 2 passages. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 8:19-32. Shukracharya knows the insignificant beggar scam. And he sees his disciple about to give a little something, give a little donation, 3 paces of land to Vishnu. And he's concerned because actually he gets his livelihood from Bali. So he says, this person falsely appearing as a brahmachari is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. After taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. Prabhupada's purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in this regard that the very word Hari means one who takes away. If one connects himself with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord takes away all his miseries. And in the beginning, the Lord also superficially appears to take away all his material possessions, reputation, education, and beauty. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1088:8, Yasyaham managrannami harisheta dhanam shanai. The Lord said to Maharaj Yudhishthira, the first installment of my mercy toward a devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. This is the special favor of the Lord toward a sincere devotee. If a sincere devotee wants Krishna above everything, but at the same time is attached to material possessions, which hinder his advancement in Krishna consciousness, by tactics, the Lord takes away all his possessions. Here Shukracharya says that this dwarf, brahmachari, would take everything. Thus he indicates that the Lord will take away all one's material possessions and also one's mind. If one delivers his mind to the lotus feet of Krishna, Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo, one can naturally sacrifice everything to satisfy him. Although Bali Maharaj was a devotee, he was attached to material possessions, and therefore the Lord, being very kind to him, showed him special favor by appearing as Lord Vamana to take away all his material possessions and his mind as well. And further along, at 8:19:40, we see in the purport, no, not that one. Actually, that'll suffice for now. It gives just a flavor from that pastime that we revisit and we can remember again and again. The charming appearance of Vamanadev comes. He's so beautiful and appealing, and he just asks for a little something. And his whole intention is to take away our misery. So I'd just take a few reflections from, especially the passage we read from the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. And I'm looking especially for the ways in which you noticed how there's this give and take going on, and how it's arising in the hearts of the fledgling devotees, and how Prabhupada was orchestrating it, those kinds of ideas. Mukaravinda.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful passage. One particular point struck to me was when Prabhupada asked Vale, right? Vale, sorry. What? Vale, that...
That's from the Ramayana, Vale.
that whether you mind to be putting Vaishnava Tilak outside, and then she told, well, I will look funny. But then Prabhupada is always like, he doesn't want it to force something that you don't like, then don't do this. It's like very accommodating nature of Prabhupada, that he's respecting other people's and inspiring them gradually to take to the higher stage.
Well done. Good point. This is an important point, that Krishna consciousness is done voluntarily. And this is Krishna's whole arrangement. Samaham sarvabhuteshu nami dveshostina priya. He doesn't force a living entity to love him, to turn to him. However, he does go out of his way to inform the living entity of the consequences of his action. It's not Krishna's fault. It's the natural consequence when one turns away from Krishna. One becomes entangled because of our tiny nature in the material world. And so the entire scheme of things, and especially the process of Krishna consciousness, is predicated on this idea that Krishna's inducing voluntary service, and his representatives are to do the same thing, is to create an atmosphere in which one will be compelled to, out of love, out of appreciation, out of gratitude, to give something in return. This is the great art, Prabhupada said, of management and of preaching Krishna consciousness, is to create this feeling. Bali.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So Prabhupada also mentioned the give and take, and the second point we didn't read, that we also not only take money, but we give in the form of books and magazines and all. And in the subsequently, there was a room conversation later on, and Prabhupada mentioned that, you're taking money, because at that time ISKCON was a little bit established, maybe somewhere around 67, and he was saying that I am the only person from India who came. There are people who come to America to beg for money. But I am a beggar as well as a giver more, which is in the form of books, in the form of philosophy, Krishna consciousness I'm giving. And people they came for begging because you are rich. But I came here to give you the beyond richness, which is Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, so you're spilling over into the extreme giving, which is the other side of it. We're talking now about taking, and then there's giving also. So not only is Krishna the extreme taker, and his representatives the extreme taker, because when you're engaged in Krishna's service, you can take everything. Just as Vamana, some people, they can only take so much, but Krishna can take everything. He can digest it. He's the only one who can actually take everything. That's why in the Gita, Krishna says that Bhoktaram Yagatapasam. He says, recognize that I'm the supreme taker. Bhoktaram Jagat. That's what that means. Bhoktaram Jagatapasam. I'm the one who can take everything. Because you can give so many things to mundane people, but they can't digest it. They can't take it properly. And you won't feel satisfied. They won't feel satisfied because they're not takers. So Krishna identifies himself, and some people become concerned with this verse, Bhoktaram, I'm the only enjoyer. What does that mean? What are we? What am I? When you actually find somebody who can take unlimitedly, you become very happy. It's just like if suddenly you could eat as much as you wanted. If your stomach developed unlimited capacity, you can eat as much as you wanted and you'd never be full. I mean, to think how nice that would be. You just keep eating and eating. Krishna's like that. Doesn't matter how much you give him, how much you feed him, he's always, okay, give me more. Anior, anior, anior. Feed me more, feed me more. So he can take everything. And those who are working for Krishna, they understand the principle, yukta vairagya. Everything is to be taken for Krishna. It's to be used for the supreme enjoyer, fed into the fire of Krishna's digestion. That's why when we do the fire, it's like Krishna's coming out. Say, okay, feed me now. And it's like, swaha. How much can a fire eat? Unlimited. That's what Krishna says in the Gita. He says that even a little flame, it can eat up all of Mountain View. You just keep feeding it in piece by piece. Of course, a bigger fire will go quicker. But you see these forest fires go in, they say, okay, I'll eat this town and I'll eat that town. Now we're going to eat the whole valley. It just goes around. Agni's like, okay, I got a big appetite. We'll just eat the whole city now. And a fire can eat everything. So Krishna's like that. He's the supreme taker. But we actually feel satisfied because just as the digestion takes in everything and then it redistributes it, it gives it everything. So similarly, as a limb of Krishna, as an anga of Krishna, when we feed Krishna, who's unlimitedly hungry for our gifts, actually for our love, then it comes back to us. Then we feel nourished, we feel healthy and happy. What else from the passage? Or what other thoughts do you have? Go ahead.
Maharaj, I noticed that in this conversation that if we do little service, there is a more opportunity. And more you do, there is a more opportunity. And it's unlimited in this process as you take. So that was very profound.
Isn't that profound? And this is how we grow our society, is we invite this kind of giving. We invite people to give. Even when we go out, our activities where we're going door to door, we're going the street, wherever we go outside the temple, is really we're giving and we're taking. Sometimes people say, why don't you just give it for free? It's like, I don't want to cheat you. If I give it to you for free and I don't ask you for something, I'm not a cheater. I'm an instant giving a beggar, but I'm not a cheater. A cheater just gives it away and doesn't take anything in return. But that's your duty. Krishna's hungry. You give him something. You have to take it. So Prabhupada situated himself. You can see he's situated there. And because he's feeding Krishna's unlimited appetite, he can unlimitedly take. He can be an extreme taker. And everyone who comes along is like, can I give this? Give it. And the next thing, the last passage here is a very nice indication of that. I love this point where Howard says, oh, I could do a little more typing. That's a thing to say to Krishna. I can do a little more. And it's like, okay, just get in here all the time. It's like, oh my God. I need you to do this now. It's like, whoops. I should be careful what you ask for, because Krishna will fulfill it. So he tells him, yeah, I have some more typing here. And it's like, this is a lifetime of typing. Oh yes, many lifetimes. It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with one lifetime, but it goes on and on and on and on. This is our eternal relationship with Krishna. And once I consider that relationship and actually give into it, I surrender, as Krishna says, then I actually start to feel real happiness. I start to see it. It's actually, the more I do this, the bigger a person I become, the more fulfilled I am, and the more capacity I have to give. And this is what growth in devotional service means. It means recognize the supreme taker and surrender to him, and give as much as you can. Shraddha.
So, Maharaj, I'd like the point where you had said that the perfection of life is when you perfect, living, giving and taking. And then back to the last paragraph again, the instance with Howard. I was thinking about when Prabhupada said it's many lifetimes. I was looking at it from Prabhupada's perspective, that this was extreme giving, that what Howard would type in many lifetimes, Prabhupada gave in just one lifetime, more painstakingly writing it down.
Yeah.
And typing is much more faster, so Prabhupada's was even more extreme.
Yeah. And someone who has that service for Krishna and is expanding his or her service for Krishna, then as Rupa Goswami says in relationship to his chanting, he says, now I'm chanting and I need more ears. How many do I need? Millions of ears. How many tongues do I need? Millions of tongues. So a person who realizes this principle, that there's unlimited service to do, starts thinking, I need help. I need more people. I need more. How many do you want? 1 million people. And Prabhupada used to say, every GBC should have 1,000 secretaries. Because once one realizes how much there is in the universe to be engaged, then there's no end to it. It doesn't stop. There's no sleeping in Vrindavan. Everyone's awake all night long. Krishna goes home. He pretends like he went to sleep. Mother Yashoda tucks him in, and his eyes are wide open. He climbs out the window, goes out to play with the gopis at night, and comes back, sneaks back in the morning. But there's never any sleeping in Vrindavan, because everything's moving, everything's dancing. And that's the Krishna consciousness movement. It means that the devotee becomes enlivened to this principle of giving and taking, and then can't stop, because everything's rushing in at one time, and it has to be expanded. You have to have millions of tongues, millions of ears. Yes. Madhava Govinda.
Yeah, it was very inspiring to see how when that devotee, he brought a mango, like he was thinking of serving, and because Prabhupada told that he liked mangoes, he went out of his way to get a mango and give it to Prabhupada. And then when he gave it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada appreciated the gesture, and other devotees were laughing, and then Prabhupada told, no, this is actually Krishna consciousness serving. That was
And you can see how these are eternal acts also. First of all, Krishna gives a little intelligence. Because if you have this desire, I want to serve the spiritual master, and then Krishna says, Krishna gives the intelligence, why don't you get him a mango? He said mango. And then devotees actually, it's like, let me be the first one to bring him a mango. And then you'll notice that devotees become noted for that. That devotee then became noted. He's the one who brings the mangoes. In fact, that becomes the names of different devotees. That's their eternal name. That Kolavecha Sridhar, he offered his service to Krishna in such a wonderful way by taking the banana cores and giving a little bit to the Mother Ganges, and then his humble service to Krishna. But this is the identity of the devotee, Jiv Krishna Das. And so they become known, it's like he's the giver of the mangoes. That's his name. Giver of the mangoes, Das. And it expands, it becomes eternally known. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recognizes that, and that's where it grows from. You may think, it's a tiny little thing. I'm just offering one mango. It's like, it never ends. It goes on forever and ever and ever. Who else had? Yes, 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2.
I was just thinking about, I forget, I think it's Raghunadas Goswami or Sanatan Goswami, I don't remember, where he says that if you are attached to material things, don't go onto the shore of Yamuna or look at Krishna, because he will just take it away. So I was just remembering that when Prabhupada is saying he's an insignificant beggar, and it's just so merciful that he established ISKCON and got all of them, and slowly taking us away from everything that is material. And then he's saying, so you can imagine that he's the height of Trinadapi, where he's saying he's insignificant, but how significant he is in all of our lives.
Yes. And this is a good state of mind to keep oneself in. Insignificant, that's okay. Beggar, that's okay. But insignificant beggar, that's a complete phrase. Because both insignificant, but you have service to do as an insignificant, and that is to beg on behalf of Krishna. And when you put those two things together, then you actually become significant. When it's on behalf of Krishna.
I was also thinking that so many times, what I'm trying to understand my mind more, I was thinking that, when I achieve something, just feel, somebody says, oh, you did such a nice job, and then just feel, oh, wow, see, I'm so good. My mind tells me, you're so good. If I take my mind's preposition and become puffed up, then, these points of Prabhupada, reading Prabhupada Lilamrita, how hard he worked, kind of puts a hammer on the head, saying that it's not even a drop or in the ocean that you're trying to do anything at all. So it's just very helpful. Just remain humble.
Yes. Thank you. Victoria, and then there's 2 from the internet.
Hare Krishna. I like the attitude of Prabhupada towards his disciples. It's like he's considering them like his own kids, calling a boy. So it creates this whole atmosphere where this love can be revealed.
Yeah, it's a nice point. And I would add that, there's a respect that Prabhupada has for them. Even though they're neophytes, even though they're beginners and just coming to Krishna consciousness, because Prabhupada sees that they're awakened to this point of giving, that he sees Krishna as inspiring them from within the heart. And therefore, he also respects them. He doesn't treat them as insignificant. He knows what they're doing is eternally valuable. Neha bikramanashosti prativayana vidte swalpamapya siddharmasya trayate mahato bayat. The devotee sees it before the giver sees it. Like devotees, as we go out to do Sankirtan, for instance, we see something that other people who are giving don't see. You see, I'm an instrument, therefore we notice devotees all the time, they'll walk by the Harinam party and say, Hare Krishna. And the devotees will go, oh, look what he did, Krishna just took that. Krishna, that's it. Devotees have a different vision than other people. Other people think that was just a joke. And it's like, no, Krishna takes it seriously. You just got caught. Haris will take that, and he'll take everything else too. Now that's your start, And this is the mood of Sankirtan. It's a very respectful service, because one is respecting even the people who are giving, thinking, oh, you're great. Even Devahuti, I was quoting the other night, she's saying, oh, bata shwa pachato gari. And what a wonderful thing this is, that someone says Hare Krishna one time is like, oh, they're great. These are exalted people. As Prabhupada said of his disciples, when one devotee was they were discussing the relativities and the different points between disciples, and Prabhupada said, better than kings, every one of them, better than kings. That's the vision of a person who knows the significance of those who are voluntarily giving service to Krishna, despite the fact that they have rough edges, or unlimited rough edges to start with. Shraddha, do you have from the internet? 2 from the internet. Anyone care to guess who they are before she says it? Who? Vaikuntha. Okay, we have bets down on Vaikuntha Nayaka.
Yes, it is Vaikuntha
Nayaka. Haribol.
Danvarts Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Last week when I was on Sankirtan, I pushed one guy to take a book. He reluctantly gave the Lakshmi for a book. He said he doesn't want to give the money, but is somehow giving it. I felt as if I was doing something wrong by taking his money. But after today's class, I don't feel guilty for having taken his money. Your servant Vaikuntha Nayak Das.
It's an art. It's an art. And the idea of pushing, we have to, it's a refined art to develop one's own Krishna consciousness to a point that people feel compelled to give. I mean, that's the real perfection of the art. As Prabhupada said, a neophyte, someone who says Hare Krishna one time, then somebody who's chanting all the time. No, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, when they were asked, what's a devotee? First he said, anyone who says Hare Krishna one time. Then the next year they asked him, the residents of Kulinagram, and then they said, okay, what's a Vaishnava? And the second time he said, someone who's always chanting Hare Krishna. And then the third year they asked him, so what's a Vaishnava? And he said, someone upon who when you see that person, you begin chanting Hare Krishna. That's the best. So in our Sankirtan endeavors, really forcing means that we develop such a pitch of devotional service. We have such a purity of heart. That is, we're not in it for ourselves. We're only in it for service. That's such a powerful energy, the most powerful energy in the universe. It compels people to want to give. And then, of course, as we're acting as representatives, it's a part of the intrigue of the Sankirtan process. And factually, like with book distribution, practically anybody can go out and give away free books. That's not an issue. But when it comes down to it, the part that most people feel a little bit of a rub is like, I'm really going to ask him for something? How do I do that? How do I actually do that? Well, you do that by developing enough momentum of giving yourself, so you just feel like, yeah, it's great. You should give. You should give everything. And the person looks at you and goes like, yeah, right, I should give everything. It's something. It's not artificial. It's not something that. And when we do it artificially, then people might become offended or something like that. So we have to develop the art, and Prabhupada said it was an art that we have to develop. And it doesn't mean that because I'm not on that platform yet that I can't stop asking. But it does mean that we have to be looking for refinement, to do it in such a way that the person feels delighted when they do give. Yes.
So the second person is an extreme organizer. This is Rashika.
Wait. Oh, did you say already? Huh? Oh, Rasika Shiromani, okay. That should have given it away for.
I like the part where Howard asked for more, said there is lifetime's worth of typing. I've experienced something like this as well. I feel so fortunate that we are guided by our spiritual masters and senior devotees in our movement who know exactly how to engage us continuously. Without these services, I feel I would go mad, not knowing what to do.
What a nice point. Yeah. So, yeah, that point at which one realizes I just got caught by Krishna. It's a good feeling, actually. And then also how the material world is so demanding itself that we have to have a greater demand pulling us another direction. We have to have so much engagement for Krishna that we're able to hold at bay all the demands that Maya is making of us. Yes, Hansapriya.
So when you started Keith, how he asked Prabhupada if he could help. And Prabhupada allows him to help, and he teaches him very gently how to press the chapatis with the no roller pin, but with the fingers and stuff. And it just left impression on me that lovingly Srila Prabhupada is making an effort to connecting with another soul. And I have experienced that, you get so much more by connecting the devotee and leaving those such lasting impression, because that way they become more closer to Krishna and they are giving, so you feel like you're doubly giving. And not just that you're not helping that person to become closer to Krishna, but you're helping yourself to get more closer to Krishna. So I just thought that giving is such a beautiful impression that leaves in everyone, that makes everyone wants to become, to taste the love that Srila Prabhupada wanting to us to realize.
Very nice point, especially about teaching others how to become Krishna conscious. Prabhupada started by saying, I started this movement single-handedly, and by this policy of give and take, it has expanded to something extraordinary, the extraordinary thing it is today. And that anyone who takes this mood in any part of the world as a representative and gives and takes and then trains people in Krishna consciousness can create a sangha of devotees, because it's natural for people to come together, to want to come closer and be part of that kind of a sangha. So I want to read, yes, please, go ahead.
So I was, there were two things like I noticed. One is that these devotees, they, sacrificed their sleep and they got up early, and that was, I think, quite rare for that age at that time. They did not have like a background of Krishna consciousness, but probably like Prabhupada's love, and they must like really liked his preaching so much that they were inspired enough to get up early in the morning and go and hear his talks. And another thing is that Prabhupada was very caring about the neighbors. Again and again he mentions like, talk softly or chant softly and clap softly. So both the things like I was like noticing.
I remember in that passage someone recalled it as a mystical experience, just going up to see Prabhupada. And that point about the neighbors, practically every ISKCON temple I know, even in remote places, it's like the Bhaktivinoda Mandir is way off, and at some point there was this big, huge thing where the city or the county tried to get rid of them. And every temple I've ever been to, there's always been an issue with Mangalartik. It's completely at odds with the rest of the society. At 4 o'clock in the morning, you're kidding me, right? You guys are singing? It just shows it's a complete transcendental movement. I also, it was going through my head, there's an old song from Phil Collins, a popular singer, made this song popular. It was written by several people, Brian Holland, Edwin Holland. And it starts off, I need love to ease my mind. I need to find someone to call mine. But Mama said, you can't hurry love. No, you just have to wait. She said, Love don't come easy. It's a game of give and take. You can't hurry love. No, you just have to wait. You got to trust. Give it time, no matter how long it takes. The lyrics go on and on from there. But you'll find throughout poetry, modern literature, and so forth that this idea is there, the give and take, the loving principle, how long it takes, and so forth. And just the fact that this Krishna conscious movement is no different, it's just purified. That's all. And now I'm going to read to you another passage that I find profound, and it shows how Prabhupada moves in the world and how his taking is so significant that even though little things that happen become augmented by Prabhupada's taking. So this is in the section of the book called Miracle on 2nd Avenue. And what's happened is that Prabhupada got really forced out of the loft that he was staying in because it was in a bad area anyway, and then he had a roommate who was letting him stay there or helping with the rent, and that person was crazy. And Prabhupada came to Mukunda's house one day. Actually, I'll read it also because it's an indication of how quickly Krishna and his representative move into one's life when one gets a little close. Okay, so the ringing of the telephone tore me out of a deep sleep. Carl's voice was loud in my ear. Carl was someone who was an apprentice of Srila Prabhupada. He was a very enthusiastic young man who was helping Prabhupada at the time. The Swami and I were just going for a little walk, and we thought we can see you. I looked at my watch, 7 a.m. I'd recently gotten a job in a Staten Island nightclub on the weekends, and I'd been asleep for only 2 hours. Carl, you've got to be kidding me. I just got home and I'm sound asleep. The Swami wanted to come up and see me. Where are you? I asked. We're at a payphone on the corner. The payphone was 50 feet from my front door. But we're in bed. This is Mukunda Maharaj. He and Janaki, before they were devotees, they just had some, casual conversation with the Swamiji. And now Swamiji's, he's out of that loft. He can't stay there anymore. So now they need a new place, right? So here it is, 7 a.m. Carl calls on the phone. He's like, yeah, Swami wants to see you. And this is how Krishna comes into your life. It's like, what, but 7 a.m. I'm sleep, right? Jeev Jago. Jeev Jago. Go to Chandrabole. And they say, okay, where are you? Thinking maybe I can get my act together, maybe it's in a couple hours or whatever. Maybe I can put him off. I said, where are we? We're right outside. We're on the payphone. Okay, so here it goes. Hang on. The payphone was 50 feet from my front door, but we're in bed. Well, the Swami really wants to see you. I sat up in bed. You've got to give me at least 5 minutes. I have to get up. Jan rolled over, turning toward the wall away from me and the phone. Okay, he said, we'll be there. I dragged myself out of bed and tried to pull myself together. Just as I was buttoning my shirt, the doorbell rang. The downstairs door must have been open because they were suddenly already up 2 flights of stairs and at our front door. Jan slept on. Half dressed, I opened the front door. Come in, Swami, I said. Here, you can sit on the couch. The Swami sat in the middle of the couch while Carl and I sat at either end. So, this is your home, the Swami asked me. Yes, it is, Swami. We rent it for really cheap. It's a good place to make music. The Swami nodded and looked up as Jan staggered in, looking sleepy in her nightgown and a bathrobe. She rubbed her eyes and looked like she was trying very hard to focus on the unexpected guests in her living room. "Oh, hi, Swami," she said. "I'm Jan. We haven't met properly, but I was at your love feast last week." "Yes, I saw you there. You are Michael's wife?" he asked. "Wife?" She glanced at me and gave a short laugh that came out sounding like a yelp. "Not exactly, no. We just lived together." I thought I saw a flash of disapproval in the Swami's eyes, but it quickly dissolved. The television was still on from the day before. There was no sound, but cartoons were playing one after another. It was a black and white TV with a rainbow-tinted glass in front of the picture tube, which was supposed to give the impression of color. I didn't even notice it was on, but the Swami did. "This is nonsense," he said, gesturing towards the TV. So I really like that point that he said, I didn't even notice it was on. And I may be playing so many things in my life that I don't know is on, but when you bring a sadhu, the sadhu then starts pointing and is going like, "That's nonsense." And I didn't even know it was there. I didn't even notice it. And one of the fastest ways to get purified is start inviting sadhus into your house. And you have to actually observe, like, how am I living? Is this proper according to the eyes of a sadhu? And that purification takes very quickly if one is willing to expose oneself to sadhus. Looking over at the animation, I said, "Oh yes, this is nonsense." I quickly turned it off. As we engaged in small talk, Jan brought me some peeled and separated orange skins in a dish, which she offered to the Swami. "That's a nice touch," I thought, smiling at her. Jan knew I was pretty into the Swami's philosophy. She thought it was a good thing, but it was definitely my thing. Scuzzlebrun, black cat, suddenly jumped up on the Swami's lap. I thought it quaint that he had perceived such peace in a stranger, but the Swami pushed him away. Later, when I finally visited India, I thought back to this incident and realized the vast cultural differences between Western and Eastern perceptions of animals. In India, while most people respect animals as spiritual equals, they do not intimately associate with them. Dogs and cats in particular are street animals that are considered dirty and generally not allowed to enter homes or temples. Scuzzlebrunzer was friendly, but there was a sense that he had been overly familiar with the Swami. Later, I understood this incident from the Swami's cultural standpoint. But for now, I felt his rejection of the cat was a little out of character for a holy man. "So how long have you been here in this loft?" That's another interesting point. That when we meet sadhus, our sensibilities won't get offended. We may think, "Oh, that's a little over the top." When people meet devotees, they think that sometimes too. It's like, you guys are a little much, But unless there's that infiltration with sadhus, then people don't actually get hooked on to devotional service. And later on, when one becomes purified, one may look back and think, "Oh, that was the cutting process, cutting my false perception of values, my false life." "So how long have you been here in this loft?" Carl asked. "About 1 year," I answered. "Why?" "The Swami needs a better place to live because Paul's getting out of hand." "What do you mean?" "He's just getting hard to live with. He swears, acts weird, disappears for hours on end, and he's rude, loud, and unpredictable. He's just weird." He shrugged his shoulders. "Weird to live with anyway, at least for the Swami." Paul had always struck me as immature and without direction. Still, he didn't seem particularly difficult to me. A bit odd, maybe, but everyone was in some way. "So how can we help the Swami?" Carl asked me. I was silent. The Swami, perhaps sensing my lack of concern, began to tell me about Paul's unusual behavior. Paul left the soap on the floor of the shower, he said. This is dangerous. When I asked him, he started ill-naming me. I was tired. A bar of soap and a little bit of swearing didn't seem like such a big deal to me. In India, the Swami continued, we have a saying, Guru Maravidya. You sit opposite a guru, learn from him everything, then you kill him, move his dead body aside, sit in his place, and then you become the guru. He paused. Paul is a very dangerous man. As the Swami said this, he looked right through me. I felt a shiver down my spine. Paul seemed utterly subservient to the Swami, almost like a slave who lacked a mind of his own. But as it left the Swami's mouth, I began to think that maybe Paul's peculiar mindless demeanor was his own problem, part of his psychological state, whatever that was, and not part of his being a follower of the Swami's. He certainly seemed unbalanced, and if he was taking heavy doses of drugs, capable of violence. It occurred to me that Paul was quite possibly a dangerous man, especially for a small elderly Indian Swami. I looked up. So you need a new place, right? That's it, said Carl. I felt a little guilty and very uneasy. Was the Swami asking me indirectly if he could appropriate my place, turn it into a temple, and me into a Paul replacement? I wasn't ready for that. People play drums here, sometimes late at night, I said hastily. There are always musicians hanging around here, but maybe I can help. Carl said, well, for now, the Swami can stay. They stood up, and Skuzzlebrunzer zoomed from his perch near us to a corner of the room. Thank you, the Swami said, looking me up and down. Okay, bye. Hare Krishna, they said quietly in unison. As they left, I realized that the Swami was carrying a small suitcase. I wondered if he had already moved out of Paul's loft, if the suitcase contained all his belongings. When the Swami and Carl left, I felt strangely alone. I felt I had to do something for the Swami, but not just because I told him I would. I realized suddenly that during the past few weeks, I had begun to feel a part of his mission. He had come to America for the purpose of spreading his mission, and to do that, he needed somewhere to live. All he needed was a decent apartment of some kind, preferably on the ground floor of a building in a better neighborhood. Experience in loft hunting had taught me that the Village Voice, a weekly newspaper, was the resource. I browsed the for rent section and then, from the nearest payphone, called a telephone number for a storefront located at 26 2nd Avenue, about half-hour walk from the Bowery. I got the first available appointment with a Mr. Gardiner and telephoned the Swami and Carl to meet me and Gardiner at the premises at 10 o'clock the next morning. It was already sunny and hot for a Manhattan morning in late June. I rode my bike up the Bowery, turned right on Houston, and then left onto 2nd Avenue. I wheeled to number 26 and chained my bike to a no parking sign. I was early. The ride over had taken only 10 minutes, so I checked out the place while I waited for the others to arrive. It had obviously been a store. The whole front was glass, a large glass window and a door with a single glass pane. The name painted at the windows was Matchless Gifts. In the distance, a short, slim, bouncy man who looked to be about 45 with close-cropped silvery hair was approaching. He wore a short-sleeved yellow sport shirt, blue denim pegged pants, and white cut-down tennis shoes. He looked up and down the building's jangling big ring of keys and checking me out as he neared me. Gardner, I guessed. He was early too. Hi, I said, when he stopped at number 26. My name's Michael. I talked with you on the phone yesterday. We shook hands. Right, Paul Gardner. He had a business-like voice. So what's up? Well, the storefront's not for me. It's for an Indian Swami who wants to lecture here 3 nights a week. He's a writer, and he wants to have some yoga classes here. He's a pretty respected scholar. He gave some of his books to the Prime Minister of India. He should be here any minute. My friend Carl is coming over with him. Carl graduated from Princeton in philosophy. He's been working with the Swami for several weeks, and Actually, that looks like them now. See, down the street? Oh yeah, I see them. Yeah, so we can have a look at the place when they get here. So, can we have a look at the place when they get here? That's what I brought the keys for. So yeah, I think he'll want to have the classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Friday nights around 7. Sounds okay. What'll he be doing? Well, the classes usually start out with some chanting, then his lectures, people ask questions, and then there's some chanting again. And what do you do? Well, I'm just trying to help the Swami out. I'm a musician, but I'm learning Sanskrit and reading some of his books and learning a lot about Indian philosophy, I mean. I see. Oh, here's the Swami now. Swami, this is Mr. Gardner. Mr. Gardner, this is Swami, and this is Carl Jurgens. They all shook hands. Carl was carrying a set of the Swami's books. Plot thickens. Your friend here has been telling me about you, Gardner said, squinting and looking at the Swami. Come on in, I'll show you the place. Gardner selected one of his numerous keys and unlocked the front door. It was a rectangular-shaped room, about 80 feet by 25 feet. It was bare but reasonably clean. A few long cylindrical fluorescent lights were twisted onto white flanges that projected from the ceiling about 12 feet above the floor. The white ceiling was made of painted metal sheets, some bulging. A large white pewter basin stuck from the left wall at the back end of the store, next to the back door. There were bars over the 2 back windows, which looked into a little courtyard. Well, this is it, Gardner said, motioning us to sit down on the small ledge that ran along the store's front windows. How much is the rent, I asked. $100 a month. The Swami said, Mr. Michael and Mr. Carl are members of our society, and they pay a subscription of $21 a month. That's not true, I thought. I wondered why the Swami said this. I wasn't a member of anything, and I certainly hadn't given any money to join. The only money I'd parted with was the $15 for the books. So, I'd like you also to be a member of our society. He held out his 3 hardcover books to Gardner. The agent smiled and took them. Thanks, he said, starting to page through them. Please take these books. You can be a member. It's $21 a month, and we can pay you $79 a month rent. You won't have to pay anything now. And to see that the Swami was striking a deal with Gardner, and that his claiming we were already members was part of this. I remembered him telling me that he had been a businessman back in India. It looks like these books were a lot of work, Gardner said, looking genuinely pleased. Okay, thank you. By the way, I also have an apartment in this building for rent. The 3 of us looked at each other surprised. How much is it, I asked. You can have it for $85 a month. Where is it, asked Carl. It's just a flight up in the back. I'll have to paint it if you want it. So from there, of course, they go and they get the apartment too. But this just gives a snapshot of how Prabhupada moved in the world. He's always taking. Of course, he's always giving and taking. But at every moment, he's poised to accept some service. So he was a businessman before, but this business for Krishna is being fully aware of the fact that people need to be engaged in Krishna service to be happy. And it's actually violence, Prabhupada mentions, to not engage people. In other words, to let them go in their own sweet way in the material world, which is not sweet at all, and just think that, why should I disturb them, is not the real mentality of a sadhu. A sadhu thinks, how will I artfully inject my agenda into their life? Because sadhu's agenda is Krishna's agenda. And we read the other day when we were in Govardhan, well, the other week or month, that a devotee doesn't have an agenda of his or her own. It's, I only have Krishna's agenda. So Krishna's agenda is to actually, his hidden agenda is everybody back to Godhead. externally, he facilitates whatever desires that people have. So the devotees, they take up this cause of being takers for Krishna. And just a last couple points. We'll see Adi Leela 9.29. Chaitanya Charitamrita. To the side of giving. As partly in this mood of giving, it comes from a heart full of gratitude. When one's heart is so full of gratitude for what the reciprocation that Krishna is giving one, that one wants to give out to as many people as possible. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, Naivo payantya pachitim kavayastevesha brahma yushapi kridam ridam udasmaranta yontar bahis tanubritam ashubam vadunvan acharya chaitya vapusha swagatim vyanakti. Uddhava says to Krishna that even if I had a lifetime of Brahma, I could not repay my debt to you. Because you appear externally as the acharya in this world, and internally you come and stay with me as the super soul. And in that way you guide me on the path back to you. And Jiva Goswami comments on that verse saying that if, it said, first of all, it says, Krishna is 10 million times more dear to the devotee than the devotee's own life. 10 million times more. That's extreme gratitude, right? And he says, the devotee feels that I could not repay the debt I owe to Krishna, even if I have 1,000, even in this span of time of 1,000 universal creations. That's 1,000 times 11 trillion plus. So this is overwhelming gratitude that comes from the reciprocity that Krishna gives the devotee when the devotee sincerely surrenders within the heart. There's an unlimited, inexplicable kind of happiness that the devotee has. Overwhelming gratitude just pouring through the heart. And that has to be shared. So that comes to this mood of the Panchatattva in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 9.29. I'll say and then please repeat. Mage vana mage keha patra vana patra. Ihara vichara nahe jane deha matra. So the translation, not considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who was a fit or who was unfit to receive it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. This is the sum and substance of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. There's no distinction between those who are fit and those who are not fit to hear or take part in the Sankirtan movement. It should therefore be preached without discrimination. The only purpose of the preachers of the Sankirtan movement must be to go on preaching without restriction. That is the way in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the Sankirtan movement to the world. And we know in other verses in this very section that the storehouse of love of Godhead was considered to be locked when Krishna came. He said, surrender to me. But the Panchatattva came and they broke open the lock. And they plundered that storehouse of love. They just took out all its contents and they ate it and they distributed it. And the more they gave it out, the more it increased. So this giving is the preoccupation of the devotees. There's extreme taking on behalf of Krishna, and there's extreme giving. And this is exemplified in the Panchatattva and in the way in which they gave out Krishna consciousness. But you'll notice that the preoccupation of all great personalities and Mahatmas is to think how to give the best thing to the people in general. Naimasaranya, gathering of sages, in which the topic was how to do the highest good to the most people possible. How many of those seminars are going on in the world right now? With no motivation, simply thinking. I mean, sometimes people say that, because the more people you help, the more profit you're going to make. This is one of the mantras in the direct selling industry. So you try to serve more people and just think what you're going to get back. But the mood of the sadhus is out of compassion. They're already okay. They don't need anything else. They're fine. But they're thinking, actually, how to And they're not thinking how I'm going to get something in return for that. They're just thinking how I can do the best benefit. That's actual happiness. When one has that, no more envy in one's heart, thinking how to do good for others. And then that becomes the occupation of the devotees. For instance, there are institutions to maintain. Why do we maintain the institution? Prabhupada said it in the very beginning, in the Upadeshamrita, to give a facility for people to come together to have these loving exchanges so they can come closer to Krishna. That's the only purpose behind it. There's no profit motive behind that. And then this, as Joseph T. O'Connell, the late Joseph T. O'Connell, who was renowned as the world's in the academic world as the best scholar on Gaudiya Vaishnavism, writes in his essay called Institutionalizing Prema. He says that the institution is a means by which culture can be transmitted across time and geography. How do you spread that loving culture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu across many generations? Pass on to the next generation. We're all thinking that in our ISKCON society. How do we transport the same loving feeling and the methodologies Prabhupada had, as we're hearing about little snippets here, to others? How do they take that up, and so it doesn't become something else? You know, how is it remain that the foundational points are love and trust and giving and this culture of loving exchanges and so forth? How do we maintain that in an institution? So an institution is that vehicle through which that culture given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and by Srila Prabhupada is transmitted across time and across geography. How do people in Mongolia get this? Well, they have to meet a sadhu. I know Indra Maharaj is going over there. They meet him. Their devotional service starts because you just look at them and you want to chant Hare Krishna. So there's ways of spreading the culture. But Joseph T. O'Connell said, hard institution, the soft institution. Hard institution means the buildings and the organizational structure. And the soft institution, he said, is actually even more important and more potent. And he said that is Vaishnava literature. Vaishnava literature is an institution unto itself because it achieves the goal of an institution, which is to transport culture across time and geography. So when a book is created, and that's what Prabhupada spent his time doing, among many other things, but you'll notice that was his main focus, getting his books printed and distributed all over the world. That same culture can be transmitted to people in Spain, in China, in Italy, in Germany. Where else am I missing? France, Russia. And it has spread to Russia. You know, we were just talking to Shyamasundar Prabhu the other night. He was visiting here. He was there in Russia with Prabhupada in 1967. And it was practically impossible for Americans to get visas at that time. But they kept trying and trying. And they were able to get this special, like, 5-day visa so that Prabhupada could go there. And the devotees traveling with Prabhupada have to have a visa also. He was traveling with Prabhupada, so he had to have a visa also. So when he went there with Prabhupada, 2 days were used up talking to Professor Kotovsky, who wasn't actually interested in talking to them because he would be seen as cohorting with these Western people. But he did it because he had engaged in some kind of letter writing back and thinking that they probably won't come and they won't be able to come. So he felt a little free about it at the time. And then when they realized they were coming, he's like, oh my God, what did I do? That's another case of the campaign of the pure devotees, like, oh, that feeling like, oh, why did I say that? I could have avoided surrender at all. So then Shyamasundar was telling us that they met one person there, and Krishna sent him because he spoke English. And he was also interested in devotional service. And he came up to the apartment, and he just listened to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada poured out his heart for 3 days. And it just so happened, they had one book. See, it was completely illegal to bring any religious book into the country at all. And Prabhupada had noted that fact, and Shyamasundar had noted that fact, but Malati, whom we know and love, at that time Shamasundar's wife, had snuck a Bhagavad Gita into his bag. Thank you. And when they went through customs, the customs agent pulled the Bhagavad Gita out of the bag, and Malati had also crammed in a bunch of devotional pictures. Pictures of Lord Chaitanya, pictures of Lord Krishna, and there were so many of them in the book. When the man saw the book and he pulled it out like that, all the pictures flew out in the air and went all over the ground. And there were people waiting in line, and this immigration line. And he was so embarrassed that he had made those pictures fall out, that in the scuffle, they picked up all the pictures, he helped them put them in, and they said, just go ahead. And somehow or other, the Bhagavad Gita got in the country. And that first, a very lucky soul in Russia who met Prabhupada there, then was the recipient of the Bhagavad Gita, somehow that snuck in the country. And he was telling us how he had copied that book many, many times. Shyamasundar was telling him, he recently passed away, this great soul. But he had copied it many, many times and distributed it around Russia. And that was the genesis of the devotee Krishna consciousness. He also became a great teacher of Krishna consciousness, and later was tortured practically till he was insane by the Russian government. He gave up his life really for the cause of Krishna consciousness. But coming to the point of the soft institution, that one book that snuck into the country, it made its way around. That's what happens with books. They're little containers that hold seeds, and they go out into people's minds and hearts, and they change them. So, why do sadhus spend so much time printing books? It's a really difficult challenge to make one book. I can attest to that fact. It's very difficult. And what to speak of to get it out to people, you have to move it around. You have to have a whole team to do that. But they do it out of compassion. They do it because they realize there's no other way for living entities except to come in contact. The preoccupation of the devotee is this extreme taking and extreme giving. And why is it extreme? Because normal giving and taking has a beginning and an end. But the taking and giving of the devotees is infinite because it's on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just concentrate your efforts on this give and take, as Phil Collins has said in his song. So it's bona fide Shastra. Love's a game of give and take. Just remember that. And give Krishna as much as possible and take on his behalf. And to achieve that potency in doing that, take Krishna's words to heart from the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam Parityaja, and just give your very self to Krishna, because you'll never be the loser by surrendering everything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gaur Premanande Haribo. So we thank everyone for coming out here on a Saturday morning. You're all great souls. These are true sadhus. And for all the devotees who have tuned in for the last 2 hours over the internet, over 100 of you, let's give them a warm welcome. Haribol. And now we have the great privilege of doing a Guru Puja to worship His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, through whom we get this energy to be givers and takers on behalf of Krishna. Tat Sat. Vanchakalpadurubhascha kripasindabhevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki.